Seaport, even from the seats in the upper decks, you could see the seashore. Tailgate function with the carne asada. Just walk from the tribal building for the Padres, I'm on it. Yeah, cause for the 619, we'll knock you down. Anything for the Brown, put it on the town. Started back rocking the Brown. Ever since we've been knocking them down. Baby said she wanna go to the game. Taught her how to say Padre gang.
Good day, everybody. Welcome to episode 269 of the Talking Friars podcast and YouTube show. I'm your host, Ben Fadden. World Series. Wow, what a game last night that was. I mean, maybe not a game, but just what an accomplishment that was by the Houston Astros last night. No hitting the Phillies. Combined no hitter. I don't care. That was a combined no hitter. That's still very, very impressive. Game 5 tonight. Series tied at 2. The off day tomorrow, game 6 and 7, and then we'll get on to the off season where we immediately have those 5 days after that World Series ends for those player options and I believe club options to be decided. Profar, Martinez, Suarez, Myers, we know what the decision's going to be. But we have now, after the World Series ends, we finally can start really getting into the off season. Right now, I still wanted to put content out, every day for you guys. So I'm doing player reviews, and I'm going to continue that today. Josh Bell and Brandon Drury. Excuse me for kind of the new format if you're watching on YouTube here. My computer's broken, so I'm not going to be with it for the next 4 weeks. So bear with me. I'm doing this on a different device on my iPad. So hopefully it looks fine and the audio's good. But without further ado, let's start. Josh Bell. I'll start with him. Obviously, he came over in that Juan Soto trade. He was like the throw-in, but it wasn't really like he was the throw-in because they had Josh Bell at the news conference with Juan Soto. It wasn't like it was just Juan Soto there and all the expectation was on Soto. Like the Padres did value Josh Bell in this trade. They sent Luke Voit away and Hosmer. They wanted him gone to bring in Josh Bell. And I think it's fair to say that he underperformed with the Padres this year. If you look at the numbers, yeah, the full season numbers are fine, but the time with the Padres, at least in the regular season, he actually played worse than Luke Voit did when Voit went to the Nationals. Hosmer played 50 games or something. It wasn't much or it might have been less than that. It might have been 50 plate appearances actually with the Red Sox. But he had better numbers, slightly better numbers than Josh Bell did. Josh Bell hit 192, 3 home runs, 79 weighted runs created plus with the Padres after that trade. And then you look at Luke Voigt's numbers. He had a 228 average, 9 home runs, so 6 more than Bell, and a 90 weighted run created plus. Hosmer, 244, no homers, 80 weighted runs created plus. So I'm not really looking at Haas's numbers. I'm looking more at Bell and Voit. Voit did better than Josh Bell did in that regular season. Josh Bell, he had that 1 for 30, I think, stretch where he was really, really struggling. In the postseason, though, I mean, that's a positive. He got a hit in 7 of the 10 games. He had that home run in game 1 of the wild card series. In game 4 of the NLCS, he obviously, or not game 4, game 2, excuse me. He had a really big game, him and Drury. Padres would not have won that game if Josh Bell didn't have the home run, if he didn't have was it a double? He had the big hit as well down the right field line that brought in a run, brought in 2 runs in that game. So he was huge there. So he had some positive moments with the Padres, and some of them were in the postseason. He did pretty well in the postseason. Or I should also mention, before I talk about the regular season and more of the negatives, obviously game 5, NLCS against the Phillies, he came up with the game tying hit in right center. So that pumped the guys up. So before Zokar scored, right? He was pinch run for. Zokar came in, got to third, and then scored on the wild pitches by Sir Anthony Dominguez. So Bell, he did have those moments. That's my point here. He did have those moments with the Padres, but he did underperform, I think, with the Padres. It was kind of disappointing. I mean, Yeah, he was the throw-in, but like as I mentioned, he was sitting in that press conference with Juan Soto. He was in the middle of the Padres lineup when he was playing, and he went through, a big slump. He went 4 for 45 in a 12-game stretch in August. I think Padre fans are in their right to be disappointed in Josh Bell's performance that he had with the Padres since that trade. But I'm not opposed to bringing him back in free agency. He's a switch hitter. He doesn't have the same versatility that Brandon Drury has, but he does hit. He's more of a balanced hitter, if that makes sense. Switch hitter. He hits good against righties, good against lefties. It's not like Brandon Drury where he hits only, or he hits much better against lefties easily compared to righties. Like I think he's more of a complete hitter, both sides of the plate, regardless of who's pitching. So that could be used as positive. He can always um, play first. Yeah, I think he's pretty good there. He can DH. So he's an option. Keith Law of The Athletic. I talked about him with Profar yesterday, a little bit with Drury as well. He ranked Josh Bell. What did he say? He was the 14th best free agent or something on his list. I forget what it was, but he has Josh Bell getting like $14 million a year. I don't know if he's going to get that much, but he does have him getting more money than Brandon Drury, or thinks that he deserves more money than Brandon Drury. So if I were the Padres, I agree that Brandon Drury is probably going to get less money than Josh Bell is. If I were the Padres, I'd probably want Drury over Bell, and maybe you can use some of that money with Martinez, Suarez starting pitching, um, or you can bring in another guy that hits good against righties, and you can have a platoon there. If you want to bring Will back, you do have to add to the bench, I think, right? So there's different ways to go about it. I'd personally probably rather have Drury over Bell. You can bring him back for multiple years. I think he's going to come cheaper than Josh Bell, but that's just me saying that. There's no sources, or um, there's no John Heyman or Ken Rosenthal or Passan or any. Well, he doesn't really do that, but you get my point. There's no Bob Nightingale, even though I don't really trust him. There's no national reporter or even Kevin Acee or Dennis Lynn out there saying what Josh Bell or Brandon Drury might get in the free agent market. It's just me thinking that Brandon Drury is probably going to get less money. Josh Bell has been better, just based on the eye test. And I'm not on the stats in front of me right now, but I think he's had a better career. He's been more consistent than Brandon Drury has. Brandon Drury had a great 2022. 2021, he was with the Mets. I think he was with the Diamondbacks a little bit too. The Diamondbacks, he was losing playing time with them, I believe. So he just hasn't been a consistent great hitter, or at least he hasn't put up the same consistent great power numbers. Um, so maybe some people like Keith Law, they're going off of that, and they're saying, well, no, teams aren't going to think that Brandon Drury's going to have as good of a season as he did last year. Um, that's fair. So, and I talk about last year, I'm meaning obviously this year, 2022. That's fair. But I think the Padres could use that to their advantage. And if teams think that, all right, Padres give him 2 years and give him. I think it's going to take more than $6 million a year, like Keith Law was thinking. So give him 2 years for 15 million or 16 million, 8 million a year. I think that's fair. I was thinking that Brandon Drury is going to be 2 years, 20 million, 10 million a year. And I personally would be fine with that. If you're going to use him in multiple positions, you can DH him. He is extremely valuable, I think, to the Padres in that role. But again, that's me looking ahead. And this episode obviously is about the 2022 reviews. So with Josh Bell again, I think it was a little disappointing, him with the Padres. His whole season, it was fine. I think it was a good year, especially on a walk year. Had a 2.0 Fangraphs WAR, 156 games, stayed healthy, 266 average, 362 on base percentage, 422 slugging percentage. His OPS plus was well above league average, 128. 78 runs scored, drove in over 70 runs, hit 17 home runs. But with the Padres, I look back at more of the disappointing stuff. That's just what comes to mind for me. Yeah, he had some good postseason games. He got a hit in 7 of the 10 postseason games that he played in. But he did struggle with the Padres more than he probably would have liked. Now he could come back and be that 300 hitter like he was with the Nationals, but that's not what we got with the Padres. Maybe that's us setting too high of expectations on Josh Bell, but he had the high expectations because he was hitting in the middle of the lineup because we saw what he did with the Nationals. I think he's been in a home run derby, or at least he was an all-star with Pittsburgh. So we saw what he did previously, and so we had some expectations for him. And maybe he met him in the postseason, but I don't think he met him as a whole. Moving on to Brandon Drury, his season was a really good year for him as well as a whole. 3 Fangraphs WAR, 138 games played, 263 average, 320 on base percentage, 492 slug, a 122 OPS plus. That's obviously above league average. 87 runs scored, 87 runs driven in. Don't really see that. You score the same amount of runs as the amount of runs that you've driven in. That's kind of cool. Means that he's getting on base. He's not just driving in runs with sac flies and stuff. 28 home runs, very good power year. He had, I believe, 8 home runs with the Padres after he got traded to the Padres. And I think he lived up to expectations with the Padres. You can't hold the time that he was out with the concussion. You can't hold that against him, right? He got clocked in the head a couple times. One of the main one was by Dustin May, right? You can't hold that against him. Um, I thought when he was on the field with the Padres, I thought he performed pretty well. I mean, he had his moments in the postseason, just like Josh Bell did, right? You think of the NLCS. He had that 2 RBI hit in game 4 in the first inning. He was part of that 4-run first inning before Clev crapped the bed and couldn't get an out. And all of a sudden it's 4-3. Martinez works his butt off. It's now still 4-3. Um, and Mania comes in, gives up a run. Melvin still goes to Mania in the 5th inning, and he gets clobbered. And now you lose the game, And so you had a 4-0 lead, a 6-4 lead, and you lose that game. That was not Brandon Drury's fault, right? He came through. Talk about NLCS game 2. He came through there. Obviously, he had the home run, the first home run before Bell hit a home run. He had RBI. I think he had a second RBI as well. Yeah, he had the go-ahead hit. So I thought he came through with the Padres there in the postseason. Remember in the wild card series, if I remember correctly, it was more Josh Bell got the playing time in game 1, and Will was playing. Did he play all 3 games? I want to say he played all 3 games in that Mets series. It was Will that was getting the playing time there early over Drury. Drury did have that error defensively at first base for Snell. I think that was in game 2, but then he redeemed himself later with those uh, RBIs, right? So I thought Brandon Drury came through. He had an average, in the regular season, he had an above average OPS plus with San Diego, 8 home runs with the Padres. Um, and in terms of like the outlook this offseason for Brandon Drury, I've already talked about that obviously before I even got to talking about Drury's 2022 season. I'd bring him back based on money. And I know you don't want to be, I don't think you're pinching pennies to say, let's bring back Drury because he's cheaper than Bell. That's not really my full reasoning why. If I'm in AJ's position, I know that I like versatility. Brandon Drury showed that he can play in San Diego. The power's there. I have no reason to believe that he can't repeat that again in 2023. Felt like he was comfortable with the Padres. I don't know if you guys saw this, but I think was it Kevin Acee? Someone reported that, or not reported. It's not like a big serious thing, but after the 2022 season ended in the NLCS, it was Drury, Manny, Musgrove, might have been Mania in there. I forget who, but Drury was in there along with the other team leaders, the 2 main team leaders, sipping a beer and kind of reflecting on the season. And to me, that was like, oh, wow, Drury already kind of one of those leaders. He just got here. Is that something to look at and kind of read between the lines there that the Padres want to bring him back and they really see him as this big guy in the clubhouse. I don't know. Drury to me kind of seems like a Will Myers, like leadership wise. Like he just kind of plays on the field. Um, he always speaks to the media. Um, Someone who gets it. It kind of feels like that. He's not. He doesn't seem like someone that's going to get up in front of the clubhouse and give this speeches and stuff. Um, but maybe I'm reading too much into that meeting, or not the meeting, but the I don't know the group that was in the clubhouse after they lost to the Phillies, kind of reflecting and just around that table in the clubhouse. I think it was Kevin Acee that reported it, but that kind of caught me by surprise that Brandon Drury was in that group. But I'm probably making too much of that. But if either should come back, I know I asked that in the description here on YouTube. If either should come back, or should either come back, I think Brandon Drury should come back. I know that he doesn't hit as well against righties as lefties, but you could use him as a platoon, and you could hope that he could improve against righties, obviously. I think he's pretty solid at first base from what I saw. I know he made that error in game 2, but then he made up for it offensively. I mean, there's not a whole lot of negatives for me to say about Brandon Drury, what I saw with the Padres. Sure, it's a small sample size, but that it is what it is. That's what I saw. That's what I can judge off of. And I know that he's, people can bring up, the Diamondback numbers, and he was on the bench sometimes with the Diamondbacks, and he didn't get a ton of playing time with the Mets, if I remember correctly. It feels like he's a different player, though. Like, he hit in Cincinnati. Some can use, the Great American Small Park argument, and he had a lot of those numbers were with Cincinnati. But when he came to the Padres, yeah, he had that concussion IL stint. But when he was on the field, I mean, he was helping this team out. He didn't, if I remember correctly, maybe he slumped, but I don't remember him going through this long, prolonged slump at all. So I liked what I saw from Drury. I'd be open to bringing him back. Maybe I can discuss this on a episode in the future about what I would bring him back for. Just my gut answer, my first answer would probably be 2 years, maybe 3 years, but or maybe that's a club option. The third year, 2 years, I'd think about 2 years, 20 million, or 2 years, 19 million. 2 years, 16 million, 8 million a year. I mean, I think that's even fair. Anything above that, yeah, probably not. I'd give him more money per year than Profar. Maybe that sounds stupid because Profar, he was with the Padres the whole year last year. He was playing every day in left field. He was better defensively, best defensive year I've seen with from Profar in a Padre uniform. But I think that they could get away with having Profar walk. They could do that with Drury too if they bring in like Rizzo. He has a player option, expecting to decline that. If they bring in like Drury, I mean, Abreu's a righty, I think, too, so maybe that's not a fit. If they bring back Drury, you can use him as a first base option and DH. Maybe him or Abreu, and it's kind of the same type of deal, same structure. I'd be open to that, and then you bring in someone else, whether that's you bring Will back. I don't know if he's willing to accept a smaller contract, a team-friendly deal. Abreu or Drury, and then supplement that with someone else. I haven't looked too deep into the first baseman. I will, obviously. But you bring someone like that. Or I know Brandon Belt's a giant, but maybe he wants to have a better chance at winning. Maybe he waits, though. He might have to wait on Brandon Belt because he might want to see if the Giants bring in Judge, and then maybe he wants to stay. I don't see Belt coming to the Padres, but a lefty guy, that's why I bring up Rizzo, supplement that with a Abreu or a Drury. Maybe you can get Drury cheaper and spend on Rizzo. And I like that platoon there. Those are my initial thoughts on that. Again, nothing against Josh Bell. If Josh Bell comes back and that's the Padres' decision and they don't bring back Brandon Drury, okay, you can have Josh Bell be your first baseman or he can DH too. I like him being able to switch hit. was fine with the way that he fielded at first base. He hit 300 with the Nationals. Like, I feel like the average can increase. You know, the shift ban, I think that can help. I think it's going to help a lot of hitters, Juan Soto included. Um, so yeah, I mean, I'd be open to bringing back either. I think Josh Bell is going to be more expensive, and maybe he's going to demand a longer term deal, if that makes sense. So, those are my thoughts on Josh Bell and Brandon Drury. World Series Game 5 tonight. There's no really Padres news, obviously, because it's the World Series. You don't make moves then. Free agency hasn't started. The real offseason hasn't started. I know the Padres front office is, brainstorming and stuff, but uh, the player option decisions will come first when the World Series ends. It's at least going to go to a game 6. We know that based off of the Astros winning last night. So game 6 is Saturday. So we'll have to wait till Sunday at the late or earliest to start really digging into the free agency stuff and talking about player options and all that. And then Sunday, at the latest, that would be game 7. And then Monday, we can really start that. So stay tuned. Daily Padres content, player reviews continued throughout the week. Daily Padres content. Find me at Talking Friars on social media, Twitter and Instagram for all my other Padres stuff that I put out. This episode is brought to you by Gaglione Bros Famous Cheesesteaks and Garlic Fries. GaglioneBros.com is the website. Great cheesesteaks, fries. Check them out. I recommend you do so. Friars Road is the main location. Great people over there. So this has been episode 269, Talking Friars podcast and YouTube show. I'm your host, Ben Fenn, signing off. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll talk to you guys later. Go Padres.